This episode is sponsored by Horizon Capital, an M&A and micro private equity firm that acquires and grows SaaS companies. Horizon Capital only works with SaaS companies generating between $500K and $5 million in annual recurring revenue, where they help them unlock the true value of their business and scale to the next level. Whether you're ready to move on to your next startup or want to work with the right growth partner, Horizon's team will work with you to find the best structure possible. From M&A strategy to capital investments, SaaS is all they do. Simple as that. If you're a SaaS founder with less than $5 million in annual recurring revenue and are looking to sell your business, visit horizoncapital.com today and get a free valuation. If you'd like to sponsor the SaaS District podcast or recommend any guest that you think would be valuable to be on the show, visit horizoncapital.com/SaaS-podcast today. Thanks again, folks. Hello, everyone. This is your host, Akil Jabbar, and welcome back to another episode of SaaS District. In today's episode, we'll be talking about how to drive persistent growth for your SaaS company and building a scalable marketing agency. Today, we have our special guest, Eric Su, joining us. Eric is the CEO of a digital marketing agency called SingleGrain, which is a digital marketing agency focused on growing SaaS businesses, as well as helping Fortune 500 companies such as Uber, Amazon, and Salesforce acquire more customers through SEO and paid advertising. Eric usually helps entrepreneurs with the tools and processes to help them grow both personally and professionally, revealing secrets from those companies that have grown from multi-million to billion-dollar companies. Eric is a marketing expert that contributes regularly to Entrepreneur Magazine, Fast Company, Forbes, and he is also the founder of ClickFlow, the entrepreneurial podcast, Growth Everywhere podcast, and the Marketing School podcast with Neil Patel. So welcome, Eric. I'm actually super excited to have you on our show today.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Akil. Should be fun.
Awesome. So for those of you who maybe don't already know about you, your background, and what you're working on, can you tell us about your background, your past ventures, and how you got to where you are today? I believe you acquired and grew SingleGrain as well as building ClickFlow in 2018.
Yeah. So the long story, or actually, we'll keep it short. Actually,
Sure.
So I was leading marketing at a online education SaaS company, and then basically my podcast co-host Neil for Marketing School asked me to come help save this agency called SingleGrain, which I thought was a house of cards looking in from the outside, and I never really wanted to do an agency because I think it's a terrible business, and we can talk about that more in a little bit. But I thought to myself that if I can make it work, I could do anything. Because if I could, with the last company I was at, it was we had a great product, we had a great team. It's just we didn't have good marketing, and we were able to turn the company around and raise our Series B and kind of move on. And so with SingleGrain, the problem was it was an SEO agency, and the work that was being done no longer worked, right? All these algorithm updates hit, and then basically overnight, the work was invalidated. It just wasn't effective anymore. So, SingleGrain started losing clients. So the task was go in and see if we can turn it around. And then long story short, basically 6 months into my tenure, basically Neil was a partner in the company. There's some other people that were partners in the company. Basically, it was one yellow guy, myself, and 4 brown guys. So basically, they decided that they wanted out, and then actually Neil pulled me aside and said, "Hey, this is worth nothing right now. You should just tap out as well." And I said, "Hey, you know what? I think I'll give it a shot." And basically, I owned 10% of the company at a time, and then basically I negotiated a deal to buy Neil shares, $1 for 10%, another $1 for 10% from another partner, and then the rest was through basically just call it seller financing with the contingency of if the company failed, I would owe nothing, right? So it was basically, to me, it was exponential upside and very limited downside. So that's a Dundo deal if you read the book Dundo Investing. And so I was like, okay, picked it up, and then basically in a year, we basically almost lost all our clients, and we dropped all the way down to one employee, and still, was able to turn it around. And then the whole thesis of taking over the agency was, hey, like if it worked out, I would be able to take the cash flows from the agency, which is great cash flow business, and then take it into investing in other stuff that's much more scalable, that has again exponential growth versus linear growth. So hopefully that explains kind of where we're at today.
Yeah, definitely. So I'm guessing Neil probably regrets that $1 investment is probably worth on his shares is probably worth $1 million or more.
Yeah. I mean, it's. But the thing is this, right? Like Neil and I have always been close, and then he, after seeing the success of the agency, I had a conversation with him, talking about what he can do with his website, and it wasn't, I kind of nudged him in the direction of saying, hey, like, you should do it too. It just makes a lot of sense. And so he's got his agency; it's doing really well today. The funny thing is, we're not involved in the day to day on the agency, so we hired a CEO for agency for SingleGrain, and then he's got a CEO for Neil Patel Digital. So it all worked out. Nice. Generating great cash flows for both of us.
Nice. And then in 2018, you decided to build ClickFlow. Was that your kind of time to shift away and get back into SaaS and invest some of that cash into it?
Yeah. So with ClickFlow, so it's basically it's software that helps you grow your SEO traffic while looking like a genius. That's kind of the tagline. Mm-hmm. Cool. And I mean, I've always been in SaaS. SaaS has always been attractive to me. Obviously, you invest in SaaS. So what we did was basically in late 2017, started it up. And then now we actually have a GM that runs ClickFlow. So I'm, out of the day-to-day on that. And then, I'm just kind of trying to focus on high leverage activities, whether it's, deal making or just creating content. It's just only the things that I can do, right? Exactly. So yeah, that's what happened.
Very cool. So with SingleGrain, I know one of your guys' main focus industries is SaaS. I'd love to hear kind of what are you guys seeing from a macro level, like marketing trends? Or are you seeing any differences in marketing spend and where it's being directed with SaaS companies, specifically in 2020 with COVID hitting and people changing their processes and budgets?
Yeah, I mean, thankfully, SaaS is on fire this year. I guess depending on the niche that you pick in SaaS. Sure. I mean, obviously, if you're in travel, it kind of sucks. But we, in terms of trends that we've been seeing, people use the word account-based marketing, but there's actually a lot of great tools now, such as Metabase. That basically does automated account-based marketing for you. So they'll run the LinkedIn ads for you. They'll run the Facebook ads. And then, if you're producing content, even better, right? So you can promote your content. What I've also seen as well in terms of trends, I'm kind of looking for different things, is, Twitter ads have been fantastic because a lot of the SaaS community, they just hang out on Twitter. And that's actually gotten SingleGrain just by all my team does is they'll use my Twitter account and promote certain content that we have, and we got amazing companies reaching out. We're spending like $100 a day. We're spending nothing basically. So argument is maybe we should be spending more to get more clients, but again, agency side business is very linear. So we're not always necessarily looking for more clients. So I talked about account-based marketing, Twitter ads. I think, customer data platforms, using Segment or Whole.io to kind of weaponize the data that you have, to combine all the data sources, and then to be able to personalize the data that you have, and then also, do better lead scoring and things like that. I think it's basically all coming down to how do you leverage data that you have in a way to target your ideal customers. Right. Another thing I would say is there's actually a really good blog post by a company called Grow and Convert. And they talk about pain point SEO. And I think that's smart because, instead of targeting, creating content for top of the funnel and middle of the funnel, I would argue, and they would argue too, that most of the content you should be creating is probably long tail keywords, going after things such as, let's say, ClickFlow alternatives, or ClickFlow reviews, or things like that, right? Where people are more likely to convert. Going for those first versus going for the big stuff. So the final thing I'll say is I know in one of your questions, I guess what we're seeing work, consistently across all of our SaaS clients is that, LinkedIn ads works well, Google works well, Facebook ads work well. But the problem with these is that the costs are just getting more and more expensive. Right. So I would just say leveraging your email list, leveraging your own assets, leveraging SEO, and then, combining with, things such as customer data platforms, you're going to have a lot more control, and then your costs can be lower.
That's an interesting. I've never heard of that as a Twitter ads as a way to consider. And I mean, if you guys are seeing good results, you might have to try that out yourself. And
Oh, for sure.
yeah, and you're saying a big community of SaaS people, and that's how we connected as well. So I agree with that. Love Twitter. A question about like kind of the perception of marketing, because I feel, how do you feel the perception of marketing from a client perspective has changed over the past few years? From the inside, it feels like, marketing went from, I think, highly subjective to the past. And now, like you mentioned, it's a lot more data driven, and marketers, good marketers are now more number literate. Is it kind of widely understood from clients, or do you often need to make that, make them aware of the value delivered and showing them the numbers?
It's probably still the second one first. I think they're still getting, I would say maybe they're like a couple years behind. I think, if you're living in the SaaS and the tech world, typically, you're ahead and you're trying new things. The clients aren't as savvy, I would say, because they have a lot of other things to do, which is why they hire like an agency in the first place. And so, yeah, that's what I would say.
Okay. Yeah, it makes sense. So, I want to know a little bit more. What does your playbook look like? I know you mentioned some kind of trends of what's working, but, you work with some of the biggest names in the industry, with the Fortune 500 companies, as well as venture-backed startups. How does the growth playbook look like to assess the, unique value proposition, who the target audience is, the market, and then drive the acquisition cost down, increase conversions, and grow MRR? Can you share a little bit of what that playbook looks like?
Yeah, I'll keep it simple. I'll probably keep it more, top of funnel. I think a lot of people, especially in SaaS, I think the screw up here is that, people in tech think, at least what I've seen, the majority is, it's, let's learn how to run demand gen, quote unquote, is just running ads. And it's a lot more than that, right? I think, you have to understand how to do customer development. You have to understand, the right questions to ask, right? The problems people are facing. And that actually guides your messaging, and your messaging actually guides your creative, right? So I think the number one most important thing when it comes to marketing is the creative. Like if you go to, if you do Facebook, go to Facebook ad library, which is free, go type in ClickFunnels. And so ClickFunnels is a SaaS company. They do about 150 million plus a year. And I believe they're bootstrapped. And, the main thing about Russell Brunson, which is kind of the face of the company, the CEO, or I don't think he's the CEO anymore, but he's the face of the company. He's a great marketer. If you look at Facebook ad library, they have over 600 creatives running at any given time. And so, but if you look at most SaaS companies, they might have like 2, 3, 4 or so. And so, but, with Russell, I would say he's a showman, right? He's done really well in terms of marketing the company, right? And so, he's constantly thinking about, okay, what new angles can I come up with? What new pattern interrupts can I come up with? Because if your creative is good, your click-through rates are going to go up, right? And all your down funnel metrics are going to be better, right? Your cost per click is going to be better. Your cost per acquisition is going to be better. And so the creative actually drives a lot of your marketing. So, whether it's again, you have to understand customer development to get into the mind of your customer. That's going to guide your copy, right? And then if you're going to make videos and things like that, your copy is going to guide the videos. It's going to guide, the images and stuff you make. So I just think, people need to think more around, hey, like, what does copywriting look like? What does customer development look like? Right? How do I get into the psychology of my customers and then, think longer term, because it's not just, we're going to throw up a couple of image ads and then bug our designers and that's it. Like if you do that, you're going to get subpar results.
Wow. I would never have thought of that, just the creative side. Usually the copy and the targeting is probably the big factor. But
absolutely. But I think that's table stakes now. Like, I think that's easy.
Right. Sure. Yeah, it makes sense. How often are you guys creating? Yeah, I've seen that before, right? Like 4, 5, 6 creatives, maybe a month, and then, just cycling, just playing on the back end of targeting. How often are you guys adjusting or creating different creatives?
So when we were running ads for the agency accelerator program that we have, I think, we don't have like 600 ads, but I believe each week we would try to come up with at least, 4 to 5 new creatives. And basically my team would meet on Mondays and it's a 30-minute creative meeting, and they'll just talk about, hey, like, here's what actually looks cool in the market. Like, here's what actually pattern interrupted me. What influence can we draw from that? What images can we pull from, or videos can we pull from, like, Eric's other content, right? And so we had a workflow going. So every single day, Tuesdays through Fridays, we'd have a 15-minute stand-up talking about like, hey, what's working, what's not working. Mondays would be 90 minutes and we'd talk about the best creatives and what's not performing. So it's very methodical, right? So having that type of process where you're actually meeting, because the meetings naturally force you to keep it top of mind. So I think that's important as well.
Makes sense. And how does the strategy change? So if you're focusing on B2B SaaS, they're targeting, say mid-market or enterprise where they have longer sales cycle versus, the SMB self-serve focused clients who are driven by, high volume traffic and conversions on the spot. Do you guys change strategy there?
Yeah, I mean, I think, when it comes to, mid-market enterprise, obviously, the ACVs are higher. So you have a lot more resources and you actually have a lot more room for error. So, it actually opens up the playbook, right? We talk about the account-based marketing stuff, the customer data platform stuff. We're talking, you can have a sales team, right? You can have a field sales team and all that. I think, most people in SaaS understand that. I think, with the SMB stuff, I think the trend is generally, everyone's talking about product-led growth, right? How do you do freemium? I think you have a lot more self-serve motions like freemium, free trial, and things like that. I think that's just generally how we think about it. It's just I think it's different, right? Like one of my buddies, he gets a ton of traffic and he sells plugins for like, $30 a year or something like that, right? And it's just like, to your point, it's just all volume. So it's different playbooks. I would say in general, they're widely understood already. So
makes sense. I want to talk a little bit about the SaaS versus agency. So I know many agency owners, including myself, I've ran agencies in the past. I know they eventually move to building a SaaS. I feel like that's a natural transition for many agency owners because they either, burn out from managing a bunch of clients or they hit that plateau or linear growth, which you talked about. So after running SingleGrain for 7+ years now, you also run an agency accelerator program. What are some suggestions you have to other digital marketing agency owners on how they're able to scale effectively, if at least into a certain point?
Yeah. So one of the reasons I took over SingleGrain was great cash flows. Once you get it stabilized, that was kind of the goal. The second goal was, I'll share some numbers with you. I have a buddy that has an agency. They do about $26 million a year and they have 25 employees. So revenue per employee is very high, right? We're talking $1 million plus, right? I have another friend. His company does about, I think it's 24 million a year and he has 10 employees, right? So 2.4 revenue per employee. And then another buddy, his company does 500 million a year with 336 or so employees. So, you do the math there. And we talked about exponential growth versus linear. I think the best way, if you're going to run an agency, if you're so good at marketing or whatever it is you say you do, you operate on performance. And so, what I mean by that is, Akil, if you say, hey, Eric, like I'll pay you $500 per lead that you drive and I'm able to get the cost down to 200, well, then I collect the difference, right? So the $300 difference right there, I'm going to make $300 per lead. And so it's good for you because all you care about at that point is I'm just driving leads. And all I care about is I'm driving leads at a good cost where I'm making a profit. And so that becomes very exponential and the incentives become much more aligned because I'm not trying to hold out on ideas to just keep the retainer going. I'm going to front load all the good ideas and I'm going to work with you as almost as a partner, but at the same time, like you don't get to boss me around telling me you want all these calls and all that, right? So that's how that works. And I think it's genius. You just need to kind of change things up a little bit, if you're running like a paid media agency or even an SEO agency. And I think, it sounds risky, but then, like anything, I think a lot of people listening to this podcast understand that it's all about the terms that you set up, right? You can set up terms that are favorable to you. And, at the end of the day, if you're still scared that it's too risky, maybe you set it up as a stock portfolio, right? Type of thing where like maybe 5 to 20% of your client portfolio might be pay for performance. The other 80% might just be, the standard agency retainers. But that's the only reason, or that's one of the only reasons that I kept SingleGrain up to now, right? I think it's still a very viable business. If you can, especially if you can make a performance, the CEO right now is tasked with doing that. So yeah.
Yeah, it makes sense. I see that with different agency owners who tell me, they do all the hard work, right? They get that retainer, but 2 years down the line or whatever, now it's hard for them to see the value. They've gotten all the growth out of the agency, and now they just can easily take it on and manage it themselves, or find somebody cheaper.
Oh yeah, it's a terrible business. I mean, it's like you're building someone else's business for them without building any equity in it. You might as well like change the incentives and then collect some more upside, and then people will like you more for that too. And then you don't need a ton of clients, you don't need a ton of headache there. So and by the way, like agencies are great. The whole reason I did the agency accelerator thing is because I talk with Andrew Wilkinson on my Leveling Up podcast. The agency is a great launchpad business. It's a great starter business. And so again, like you can get great cash flows from it. You are probably not going to sell it for a lot unless you get to like 5 million in EBITDA or so. Then you might get like a 10x valuation on that. And I've seen a couple of friends do that. But for the most part, you just kind of you can hold on to it and, you again, use the cash flows, and that is your funding mechanism to do all the other cool stuff that you might want to do.
Exactly. So you mentioned the, cost or dollar per lead model. Have you done anything, or do you suggest anything on like a percentage of sales basis? Because I know that could be attractive as well, because you're aligning the incentive for, results, but then at the same time, there's attribution and tracking and all that to think about too, right down to the funnel where maybe you don't have as much control.
Yeah. So there's a lot of nuances in there. I mean, first you got to make sure that you have a really good relationship with whoever you're going to do the performance thing with, because then they'll trust you with giving access to the CRM and, all the tracking stuff. Yeah. And then the other thing is there actually is a conversion rate optimization agency, I believe, based in Atlanta. And, for them, they actually charge, so they'll say, hey, if we lift your conversion rate up, we want, 10% or 25% of, whatever lift we provide in terms of sales. So they do it and they're successful with it.
Makes sense. I like that. How has the experience have been for you? So, building and running ClickFlow compared to growing, SingleGrain, and do you suggest other entrepreneurs who are, day one, they're looking to get into one of these options, should they go with SaaS right away, or should they, start with the agency and then, kick off to SaaS later on?
I think the answer is it depends, right? I think look, if you build a SaaS and then like you're trying to do Snowflake and they just blitzed it and they hired just really strong SaaS executives, I think you go down that route and you focus on SaaS. I think if you are looking, like for me, I like having a lot of control and I like things. I like doing things my way. So, I think the model of starting the agency first, getting the cash, and kind of it does delay things a little more. But again, ultimately I have control and I'm not reporting to anybody. That's just the model that I prefer. And then again, it like as I was saving SingleGrain, I was also building the audience around marketing, and we've built a decently sized audience now, and our we get some good traffic on kind of across the board. And so now I can leverage the cash flows from the agency, and I can also leverage the audience, and then that can push things such as ClickFlow. So the whole thesis now is like, I just want to focus on MarTech stuff, and now I want to focus more on just buying or investing instead of building, right? So I think it's just, the book I have coming out called Leveling Up, it's just about, one step at a time, right? So look, again, if I'm looking to build Snowflake and I'm looking to have like a, $1 billion plus exit, I think you go straight for SaaS. And I think if you have the resources, do it. But if not, I think the majority of people, I think you probably want to have some type of starter business first to kind of cover your nut, whether it's like 100 or 200 grand a year. And then, you have a lot more freedom to be flexible and take shots.
Exactly. And I also think the experience, just as an entrepreneur, if you've never run anything before, like in the agency, gives you, I think, makes you more well-rounded, right? You're dealing with fires, you're putting out fires, you're learning from clients, right? If you work with SaaS companies, you get to learn the ins and outs of what's working, how to manage people, how to hire people, how to delegate, deal with support, deal with sales, right? So then when you go to SaaS, like I think it's easy compared to that game, right?
Yeah, and then by the way, like a lot of agencies have just converted into SaaS companies, right? I think like there's some that come off the top. I think there's CoSchedule, there's Moz. I think Basecamp was that way too. So there's so many of these stories out there, and you can go in any direction you want.
That's true. So in our current age, 2020, how do you become a better digital marketer than your competition or your peers or people you're working with? What do you think is some main skills that is required, and what does it take to be good at that?
Yeah, I think if you want to get the top 5% of strategies or tactics around just business and marketing in general, I hate using the word masterminds, but that's a word used kind of in the internet marketing world. But there's a lot of masterminds out there. Neil and I, we have our own. We call it a peer group because we don't like to be lumped in with masterminds. But we are able to curate, whoever's in the group, right? So we have a lot of, 7 to 9 figure entrepreneurs in the group. And, Neil and I might share things. We'll bring in speakers and all that. But beyond that, like there's people sharing kind of what's working for their business. So it's because you're in an intimate environment. Obviously we don't have our live events right now, but once we bring them back, you're in an intimate environment. People are sharing and people are just a lot more open. Or you have peer groups like we were kind of talking about earlier. I'm in YPO and I'm in EO. So Entrepreneurs Organization or Young Presidents Organization. You're going to get the 5% of things that, people wouldn't share openly. And that's the gold, right? Because especially in the growth marketing or marketing world, whatever gets shared out there, it gets copied very quickly. So that's why a lot of, marketers are hesitant to share the top 5 to 10% of things that work really well. And obviously, there's, me personally, I love using Twitter because like the amount of information and the pace of information, like it's just great. So that's kind of how I get better.
Makes sense. And where would you say you're focusing your own marketing efforts and budget for your brand? So I know you have you're on several podcast shows. You have the Leveling Up channel on YouTube. Where are you focusing your time and effort now on the high level stuff?
Yeah. So the whole plan, and I was thinking about this. I had a guy on my podcast, and his name's Anthony Pompliano, and all he focuses on is just. I was like, what does your day-to-day look like? And he's like, honestly, like the highest leverage thing I can do is create content. And I was like, holy shit, like I should just be doing that because there's across the channels, if I just focused on that. It would create a lot of opportunities because, whatever you might spend, 45 minutes to create like a 3-minute video on YouTube, but then, the leverage you get from, thousands of people seeing it, that's just so hard to beat. Right. And so, I'm just strictly focused on high leverage activities such as content creation, or I'm focused on other high leverage activities such as, talking to people and then, just making deals and things like that. So, that's kind of where I should focus because I realized that, for me, I'm very good at getting things off the ground 0 to 1. I don't like details. And I just like trying new things, right? And I love learning too. So I think that actually fits in well with like me just focusing on content and just connecting with people. That's all I need to do.
Nice. And if somebody else is looking to start, same space, podcasting or starting a YouTube channel, how long and how persistent should they be? Like that, I understand the value of it. Is this a 6-month experience? Is it a 1-year thing? Or how long before you start seeing real results from it?
So I'll share the story around the Leveling Up podcast first. Sure. I mean, this was when I was trying to save SingleGrain. So, very idiotic for me to do a podcast at that time. But anyway, I decided to do it. And my whole thing was, at the time, it was Andrew Warner from Mixergy. He was kind of the big one, right? Tim Ferriss wasn't even out yet with his podcast. Right. So I was like, I'm just going to put like a marketing spin on it. So I was spending 6 hours a week interviewing, editing, reaching out to people, publishing while I was trying to save SingleGrain. And after the first year, I was only getting 9 downloads a day, right? And I did it again for this year 2. Year 2, my results weren't much better. It was 30 downloads a day after the second year. But the whole thing for me was that I was learning a lot from these people and the downloads didn't matter that much to me. So for me, it was more of like a 2-year journey to get it going. Now we're at about 100,000 downloads a month. But eventually that led to the marketing school podcast that I do with Neil. We're at about 1.5 million downloads a month right now. But like you said earlier, like it's just about persistence. Like with the YouTube channel, I didn't put, and I still haven't put a lot of effort into it. I'm starting to focus on it more now. But it's more modest, about 46,000 subscribers or so. But I would say it took 3 years to get to that point, from basically 2,500 subscribers to 46,000. So what I would say too is that things are slow to start, but then over 18 to 24 months or so, it starts to become, as you grow, it becomes exponential. It's not linear growth like we were talking about earlier. Yeah. So I think, you just have to stay patient with it. I would say YouTube's a lot more competitive. Podcasting, not as much yet, because as of like a year ago, there are only 700,000 podcasts in the world versus like over 1 billion blogs. And then, with YouTube, it's getting pretty saturated too. So I would just say, think about where your audience is. Think about where the blue ocean is, and zig where other people are zagging. And, you just stick with it for, go for 18 to 24 months. If you're lucky, maybe you get it going in 6 months. But I would also say, don't be like me, because I spread my attention. I think if I just focused on one, it would have grown a lot faster too.
And do you remember how often you were posting then? Was it like once a week thing, or were you doing this every day, the 6 hours a week on?
Yeah. So for Leveling Up, I was posting once a week because it's more of an interview type of podcast. Marketing School, we post every day, but we just batch record. They're like 5 to 10 minute episodes. And then for YouTube, we batch record as well. And before COVID, we were releasing like 3 videos a week, but now I'm actually going to try to ramp it up to like 1 per day. So,
wow. So only 46,000 subscribers. So given the size of your existing audience, would you say you're more focused on, top of the funnel or mid funnel, content marketing? Where do you see more value?
I think, on our blogs, so on the SingleGrain website, we get about 300,000 or 320,000 visits a month. So it's decent. On that website, we're more focused on bottom of the funnel, middle to bottom of the funnel, because we have good domain authority now. And whatever we tend to publish tends to rank well. Yeah. And so, what I would say for podcasting, we probably go more top of the funnel there. We're just trying to capture more of a, it's kind of like the Fortnite model. Like they're just trying to capture more TAM by giving away free stuff all the time. Yeah. And then I would say it's probably more top of the funnel too with YouTube as well, because I have this whole, I have this notepad in front, or this post in front of me. Like if my mission is to level up the entire world, I kind of have to go wide. So it depends on kind of what you're trying to do.
Love it. I love it. I actually didn't realize where the leveling up comes from, but now it makes sense.
Yeah.
Cool. What or whom are kind of like the best 3 resources, or who have been mentors to you that you could say have been instrumental to your success of where you are today? I
would say, like what I mentioned earlier, like, peer groups like EO and YPO. I first joined EO when I was 27 years old, and there's just so many things I didn't know. Like you just don't know what you don't know. And people were gracious enough to kind of pay it forward. So that was like a group of mentors. And then that network is really powerful because I'm able to travel. When I was traveling the world, I was able to meet up with people and they took care of me. Right. And so that I'm very grateful for. I think obviously, my relationship with Neil, I first met him, when when I was reading his blog, right? One of his old blogs, ClickSprout. And, we've kind of just been friends ever since, but, he's pointing me in the direction of opportunities. I've helped him as well. And then we decided to start the podcast together. So that's been really good. And I think, beyond that, I've had executive coaches. So right now I have a coach, he's the CEO of a company called Reboot. His name's Jerry. And he's been, instrumental because, just helping me unpack a lot of my baggage from, my past. It actually fits in with how I'm programmed today and how I work. And, unwinding that is super powerful. So I'd say that was a big help. Awesome. And whether personal or in business or just general life, what does success mean to you today? Yeah, I mean, success to me is just being able to wake up in the morning and work on whatever I want to work on. So that's why it's like just not having a boss and deciding what I want to do. That to me is super fun, right? It just feels like I'm playing a game every day. Right. Yeah, it's the ultimate form of freedom, right? Yep. Cool. Thank you so much, Eric. I really appreciate this conversation. You have your new book coming out. Can you tell your audience where can they get in touch with you? What can they expect from the book, and how can they get a hold of you as well? Yeah, totally. So, I mean, and thank you for that. So my background is I kind of did, esports before it became a thing. And I actually think a lot of those concepts apply to real life and also business too. So, for Leveling Up, if you want to learn more about it, you can go to levelingup.com. The entire premise is how to master the game of life. Because I actually feel like I'm playing a game every day. And then if you want to reach out, you can hit me up on Twitter at EricOSIU, or on Instagram, it's the same screen name. Okay. Awesome, Eric. We'll put those all in the show notes for people to check out. Thank you so much for your time. Appreciate it. Thanks for having me. Cheers. Thank you all for watching this episode and joining SaaS District today.
Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell for future episodes where we interview top leaders in the SaaS industry. If you're a SaaS company looking to grow and unlock the true value of your business, get in touch with us at Horizon Capital, and myself or one of our consultants will provide a free assessment to help you get there and hit your goals. If you have any feedback or suggestions for this podcast, please comment down below and help us improve our content for you all. Thanks again, and see you on the next one.